Okay, so today we are going to be reviewing the sixth book in the Harry Potter series, which is right up here, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince by J.K. Rowling. This is not normally where my Harry Potter collection goes, but I'm going to have it here for today, have it on display while we discuss this book. Now, as you can see, this book, the cover, is definitely different to these ones. This is the original UK version, and I love this version of the series, but this version of the book was the only one that was available to me, so that's what I read for this month. Anyway, this is the one I read. Okay. I'm making too big a deal out of this. Okay, if this is the first time you've seen a review that's done by me, I split my reviews into two sections. The first section is spoiler-free, where I talk about 3 cons and 3 pros in a non-spoiler way. And then the second section is the spoiler section, where I get into everything in a spoilery way, where I either gush, rant, or do both. So let's get into this one. So far I have reviewed the first 5 Harry Potter books. Here's the 6th one. Now, I make mention at the start of each Harry Potter review that I do that the film may come up, and sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it's a little bit of the film, and sometimes it's a lot of the film. So I don't know if the film will come up in this one, but I don't think that it will, because I haven't watched Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, the film, for a very long time. But just in case it does, here's your warning. But I'm sure you want me to get on with the review, so let's do that. Let's get right over to the spoiler-free section. 3 cons and 3 pros. We're having fun today. 3 cons and 3 pros about this book, book 6 in the Harry Potter series, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. So my first spoiler-free con about this book is, comparatively to book number 5, there is nowhere near as much happening. When I was reading the Order of the Phoenix, I had to take notes all the time just to make sure I don't forget anything, because there was just so much going on. With this book, there are a number of things that happen in this book, but comparatively there's nowhere near as much that does happen. So because of that, I do consider that to be a con, because we've been built up with this book, the longest book in the series, to expect to go through so many different things, and we didn't go through anywhere near as much as I thought we would. So that's my first con about this book. My second con about this book is arguments that take place between friends. I'm not going to talk too much about it, obviously, because I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but this is a trope that has been occurring pretty much from the very first book, where Harry and Ron are having an argument with Hermione. I won't say what it's about, but in every single book, someone is arguing with someone else, and that ends up developing into a temporary breakup of a friendship, and it happened again in this book. And the reason that I'm saying it's a con is because I'm over that whole trope. I wish we could just have one of the Harry Potter books where no one's fighting, there's no breaking up of friendship, and everyone can just go along rather smoothly, smooth sailing. But not to be. Big arguments that occur in this book, and temporary breakup of friendships, and I've just had enough. So it went down as a con. That's the second con for this book. Okay, so the third con for this book, I'm just going to call it J.K. Rowling ships wrong couples. Okay, so the best way to put this in a spoiler-free way is that J.K. Rowling, she puts 2 couples together in this book. I'm not going to say who, I'm not going to say why, I'm not going to say how it came about, but I am strongly going to say that I hard disagree with both couples. I've never really disagreed with J.K. Rowling on couples that she comes up with, but oh my goodness, I disagree with both of them, and I'll talk about that in the spoiler section. But that is my third con for this book, the shipping of certain couples, shall we say. So to my first pro for this book, and my first pro is more Harry and Dumbledore time. Those of you who have been watching my Harry Potter reviews so far will know just how much I love when Harry gets to talk to Dumbledore, because all of their meetings together are just so well done. And it's Dumbledore, it's really hard to give the right amount of credit that I want to give for the creation of the character Albus Dumbledore. I love this character for so many reasons. He's such a talented wizard with such a kind heart, and despite the fact that he is an old wizard, he acts like such a young wizard. And oh my god, just I what can I say? I love Dumbledore. But throughout books 1 to 5, Harry and Professor Dumbledore have a moment, at the very least, at the end of every book, where they have a discussion and they talk about things that have occurred at Hogwarts that year. And I've always found each discussion to not only be just so amazing, but also incredibly enlightening. Harry doesn't spend a lot of time with Dumbledore, though. He goes through from book 1 to 5, he goes through, or 6, I should say, no, 5, got it right the first time. From book 1 to 5, Harry generally just goes through whatever he goes through in that year, and then at the end of the year, he talks with Dumbledore. In book 6, Dumbledore and Harry spend a ton of time together. Probably half of the book is Dumbledore and Harry alone talking, and I love that. But I'll talk more about that as I go into the spoiler version. But because of the fact that Harry and Dumbledore talk way more on their own in this book than they ever have before, yeah, that's a massive pro for me. My second pro for this book, I'm just going to give you 3 words: Snape, Vow, Narcissa. I'm not going to say any more. If you know what that means, I'll discuss it with you in the spoiler section. But if you don't, it could mean anything, right? This scene, the first time I read this scene, it was so good because it's the first time we're getting to see something concrete happening about something that has been rather suspect up until that point. And so I've really appreciated some concrete proof to something that's going on. You know what I mean if you've read it, and if you don't, read the book and we'll talk about it. But anyway, that's my second pro for this book. My third and final pro for this book, and there are many more pros that I could add, but I'll leave it at 3 so I can jump into the spoiler section and start saying everything I want to say over there, is Dumbledore's first appearance in this book, shall we say. I don't want to say more than that because it will give away way too much, but Dumbledore's first appearance in this book is so good, and so much justice, karmic justice being carried out in that moment. Oh my god. Thank you, J.K. Rowling. I feel like this is something that we've needed for so long, and it finally happened. Anyway, that's where I'm going to leave it. You can see from the way I'm talking that despite the fact that this book does have cons in it, as far as I'm concerned, and with the way that I view this book, because they may not be cons to you, ultimately I did love reading this book. I love all the Harry Potter books. The one downside is that the first 5 books for me, up here on my shelf, received 5 stars. Each one did. This is the first book to not receive 5 stars, and it has nothing to do with the cover, but everything to do with the content. It's just so you know, in case you're thinking, Mr. Francy, did you downgrade it for the cover? No, I did not. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. It's still a really good rating. It's just I couldn't in good conscience give it 5 stars because I don't think it is a 5-star book. But I'll explain more about that in the spoiler section. I still celebrate this book. Despite the fact that I'm giving it 4 stars, that's still a pretty good rating. So I do definitely recommend that you pick this book up if you love fantasy, if you love magic, and you want to read a story about 3 children who go to a school of witchcraft and wizardry and have amazing adventures along the way. and so much more than that, but that's a start anyway, then you will love this series. It's very hard for me to not love this series. It is my second favourite series ever. My favourite is Mistborn, but this is my second favourite series ever. I will recommend it all day, all night, and anytime you want to talk to me about anything to do with Harry Potter, I'm always up for the conversation. And in case you want to know what house I'm in, I've said it before, but I'll say it again, I was sorted into Ravenclaw house. So I can talk about a lot of things to do with this book because I've overanalyzed all of them so many times. But that's where I'm going to leave it for my spoiler-free section. Let's get over to the spoiler section so I can talk in great detail about this book in a spoilery way. If you're not joining me for the spoiler version, I completely understand and appreciate that, and I'm letting you go with peace, blessings, and so much love. Comments, thoughts, and questions, leave them in the comment section below, and I'll be happy to hear your thoughts on this. For those of you hanging around for the spoiler section, we're going there right now. Okay, let's talk spoilers. I've warned you enough. Let's jump right in. There's a lot to discuss. I'm going to try and include as much as I can, but clearly owing to time, just like with adaptations with movies, certain movies, we won't be able to discuss everything, but I'll try and include as much as I can. Starting off with the Muggle Prime Minister, Fudge and Scrimgeour, the first time I read this book, I did not appreciate that chapter at all. But the more I read this book, the more I love that chapter. Because I guess when I first read this book, I just wanted to get back to Harry. And more importantly, I wanted to get back to Harry being at Hogwarts. And so the idea of a really not so important character in my mind, Cornelius Fudge, talking to a character we've never met before, the Muggle Prime Minister, it's just not exciting to me at all. However, I get where it's going now. I've matured over time, and I completely understand why this scene had to occur at the beginning of the book, and I appreciate it a lot more now. Had a few laughs along the way. Speaking of appreciation, I really appreciated Scrimgeour's no muss, no fuss approach. Barty Crouch comes out of the fire when he's having the meeting with the Prime Minister and twirling his bowl, or fiddling with his bowler hat, and just mumbling things. Oh yes, well, Scrimgeour comes out of the fire and basically he's, dum dum dum. This is what's going on. This is what you need to know. I'm going to leave you to your day. Bye. Hopefully we don't meet again. I appreciate that. We had so many issues with Fudge up until this point that I think all in all, Scrimgeour is probably one of the best ministers for magic. You may disagree with me, and that's totally fine, and there are things with Scrimgeour that I don't like, but as far as his direct approach and the way that he is going about doing things that don't include Harry, because I don't agree with what he's trying to do with Harry and making him a mascot, but that aside, everything else Scrimgeour's doing, I completely agree with. He's the first competent minister I think we've had in a very long time. So there's my thought on that. So let's quickly talk about the argument that I spoke of in my spoiler-free section and how I did not like that. I am referring to the argument that took place between Hermione and Ron, and these arguments are just annoying me in general. I don't know. Emotionally, I really don't like them at all. Logically, I'm trying to work out how it's necessary for these arguments to take place. I guess J.K. Rowling's just trying to make the point that no friendship is ever smooth sailing 100% of the time, but it's just becoming really annoying that every single book there's an argument that takes place and one of the three friends stops being friends with one of the others and they remain friendless. They remain out of that friendship for a significant amount of time, and it's just really annoying when it happens here. The whole Hermione-Ron thing, I don't really remember what started this argument in this book, but I think it had to do with Hermione kissed Crumb and Ron kissed Lavender, and that just became a whole issue because of, reasons that we know, which we'll get into at some point, but my point is, I don't enjoy these arguments. I don't think they're necessary, and we waste a ton of time with at least two of the three friends being out of contact anytime there's a big argument, and I just don't think it sits well. It doesn't sit well with me, just my personal opinion. That's why I mentioned it in the spoiler-free section. Okay, I'll quickly talk about J.K. Rowling shipping the wrong couples. Okay, so one thing you need to know before I actually critique the heck out of what J.K. Rowling did with these two couples is you need to know where my heart lies and who I ship in this series. I am a massive, now I don't know what their shipped name is, so I'm just going to say separate names. I am a massive Harry and Hermione fan. And so the fact that J.K. Rowling puts Harry with Ginny, why? But hang on, that's a why, but now let's go to the other one. And Hermione with Ron, why? It just, nothing about it makes sense, except for the age-old saying, opposites attract. You know, aside from that, why are they together? I could rant forever on this topic. I could seriously do a 1-hour video just on how much I disagree with Hermione and Ron getting together. It makes no sense to me whatsoever, aside from that age-old adage, opposites attract. None of it makes sense. They are so completely different. Hermione is so strict and scheduled and such a smart, intelligent person who is always focusing on her schoolwork and how she can advance her knowledge that she really should have been in Ravenclaw. But anyway, Ron is this... Look, no offense to Ron fans. I'm not a fan of Ron's. I make no secret about that. But Ron is this bumbling character that's there for comic relief who doesn't really seem to achieve that much. I mean, yes, he became prefect in the last book, but still I question that because everyone knows that it should have been Harry. Even Dumbledore said there were reasons, but Harry should have been. And Ron and Hermione fight all the time. They're just completely different people. It just makes no sense at all to me, right? Like, help me out here, people. Am I the only one? Seriously. So, the first time I read this book and that, you know, I saw them get together, I was so upset, and I still am, and it just doesn't make any sense. Now, quickly over to Harry and Ginny. Yes, over the course of the books. The films, no. But over the course of the books, yes, it makes sense that they are getting closer from the moment Ginny first sees Harry at the Burrow in book 2, or even in book 1, but we'll go with book 2 in the Burrow. Ginny is very nervous around Harry because of how much she loves him, and then over time she becomes more and more confident, and they eventually end up getting together. That's fine, that's great, but what we tend to forget about Ginny is that she is a side character that doesn't... I don't want to say she doesn't matter, because she does. All of the characters matter. They're all written with a purpose and a reason. But comparatively to Harry, Ron, and Hermione, Ginny is a side character who's not mentioned a lot at all compared to the threesome, so it just doesn't make sense to me at all. For me, it's Harry and Hermione all the way. That's where I'm going to leave that discussion because I have so much more to say, but sound off below and tell me if you agree or disagree. I just don't get it. Why would you put Hermione and Ron together? It just... Anyway, let's move on. So let's move on to Snape doing the unbreakable vow with Narcissa Malfoy. Now, I love this. Now, I was saying in the spoiler-free version how this provides us with some concrete proof of something, and yes, it has. For a long time, one of the running mysteries, well, one of the biggest running mysteries, indeed, of this entire series is Snape good or evil? And without giving away an answer, we don't get the actual answer to this until the last book. That I remember the time between this book being released and the Deathly Hallows being released. That was what most of the Harry Potter fans were talking about. Is Snape good or evil? I can't wait to get the final book because I want to know if Snape is good or evil. Snape, good, evil, yeah, what is it? And this is because we haven't really been given any tangible or hard evidence to support either way. There are times where it looks like Snape is definitely pro-Dumbledore and he's all about, you know, doing good for the Order. And then there are times where it looks like he's Team Voldy and doing everything for Voldemort. And then there are times where it looks like he's doing things for Voldemort, but as Dumbledore explains, Snape in his twisted way was actually not doing things for Voldemort, he was actually doing things for us. And then we've got the whole thing of, do we actually trust Dumbledore's judgment or not? Lupin comes up with a great line in this book, and he says it a couple of times actually. I trust Dumbledore. Dumbledore says he trusts Snape, so I trust Snape. The end. And I get that in a logical way, but I also understand the argument against, well, what does Dumbledore know that we don't know that assures him that Snape's on the side of good? So, back to my point. Snape and Narcissa are doing the unbreakable vow because Draco has been given the responsibility by Voldemort to kill Dumbledore. And Narcissa is really worried about what's going to happen if Draco can't go through with it. And so part of the unbreakable vow that Snape makes with Narcissa Malfoy is that he will carry out the deed if Draco fails to do it himself. Now, the first time I read this in the book, my heart was beating really fast as I read it because I thought, wow, this is it. This is going to show us it's an unbreakable vow. If he breaks this, he dies. That is what an unbreakable vow is. So you wouldn't just agree to an unbreakable vow on a whim, unless you're Ron Weasley and you don't know any better, because apparently Fred and George tried to get him to do an unbreakable vow when he was a little kid who didn't know any better. But aside from that, so is Snape going to pull away from Narcissa Malfoy's hand, or is he going to say yes? And he says, yes, I will. And so it's the first bit of solid evidence that makes us think, okay, he is in league with Voldemort and he's an evil character and not a good one. So I appreciated that for that point and that point alone, but I also appreciated it because Narcissa Malfoy does not have a lot of time at all in the whole series, and I do love her as a character. I wish we could get to know a lot more about Narcissa. So I not only appreciate that scene because of Snape making a very massive unbreakable vow, but also because it featured Narcissa Malfoy. So now let's talk about when Dumbledore makes his first appearance. I spoke about this earlier in the non-spoiler section about how I love this moment. Okay, so Dumbledore writes Harry a letter telling him he's going to come pick Harry up. Harry totally forgot about it, didn't tell the Dursleys. Next thing you know, Dumbledore arrives on the doorstep of number 4 Privet Drive. How good is this? Oh my gosh, the first time I read this book and I read that part, I was so excited to get to the point where Dumbledore arrives at the Dursleys' home because of just how accomplished a wizard he is and how he's not going to take crap from anyone. Oh my god, and it didn't fail to disappoint. Dumbledore is Dumbledore through and through. It's not like he came through the door and just started blasting at the Dursleys for how terrible they've treated Harry, but he does make a point of it in his own little calm way, because Dumbledore is always calm. Hello, Goblet of Fire, the movie. Dumbledore is always calm. Anyway, so Dumbledore says, look, I left him here with you with a note saying that, you should take him in and protect him and all that, but you didn't do that. And even though I told you to, and even after I sent you that howler to remind you, you're not taking care of him. The funniest part was the goblets or the cups hitting against the Dursleys' heads because they're refusing to take them, and how when the Dursleys finally have enough and Uncle Ben says, will you get these ruddy cups off us? Dumbledore says, yes, okay, I will. But, it would have been politer to just drink them. And I completely agree. But anyway, it was just such a good scene, and I had to mention it here. So now we get to the whole reason why Dumbledore has met up with Harry. I don't like that there had to be a reason. I wish they didn't go and see Slughorn, because it almost undervalidates or unvalidates, if that's a word, Dumbledore being at the Dursleys in the first place. The only reason he's there is because he needs to pick up Harry to take him to Slughorn to try and convince Slughorn to come back to school. I don't like that. But anyway, we get to Horace Slughorn's home, and Harry does, even without meaning to, does convince him to come back to Hogwarts. And we don't know why, but we know Dumbledore wants him back for a reason. We do figure out, or we can determine, but Dumbledore even says it afterwards. It's kind of the whole show rather than tell in books, and we're getting both. We're getting the show and then we're getting the tell. We're getting both. Horace Slughorn is somewhat of a collector. He likes to collect people who are connected. So Harry, being one of the most very connected, chosen one people ever, he wants to collect Harry. I did not really appreciate this whole scene at all. The only thing I really appreciate is Dumbledore wanting to look at the knitting pattern book that Slughorn has, because it's a hint to Dumbledore being gay, and it doesn't necessarily mean that he's gay. There are a lot of guys out there that love sewing, crocheting, needling, all that kind of stuff that aren't gay. But I think in this, part of the reason why this is brought up here is to make the point that, yeah, Dumbledore's gay. But, yeah, I just loved it. Anyway, regardless of whether Dumbledore's gay or not, the fact that it's so random. Oh, I was looking at your knitting patterns. Like, it's so cute. But anyway, let's move on to the next thing. So my next point I wanted to talk about was Harry and Ginny and Hermione and Ron. I've already done this, but there's a point that I wanted to make about Ron and Hermione and the whole lavender thing. Okay. I don't mind little baby talk things here and there. For example, Dobby, who probably just doesn't know any better, calling Ron Weasley Harry's Wheezy. I loved that. You've seen when I did Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, how much fun I was having and how I found that so funny. But this whole Lavender Brown 1-1 thing, WON-WON 1-1 instead of Ron, really annoyed me so much. And every time I read it, it continues to annoy me. I don't like Lavender Brown, and that's nothing against her, but it's just, oh my gosh, I just don't like her. So the fact that Ron is choosing to hang out with Miss 1-1 just really annoyed me as well. And that's another thing, again, and part of the reason I wanted to make that point is because Ron ends up with Hermione. How in the world Hermione is, like, being so smart as she is happy to be with a guy who didn't want to be with her, he wanted instead to be with Miss 1-1, makes no sense to me at all. So, again, just so many reasons why I don't support Ron and Hermione. It makes no sense to me at all. So we get to our first Defense Against the Dark Arts class, and this is... Sorry, wrong class. Defense Against the Dark Arts is now being taught by Snape, and when Harry says no, when he first finds out, the first time I read it, I was saying no at the same time. I was reading, I'm going, no, and I'm like, wait, Harry's saying no as well as me. Like, we're both saying no at the same time. Why Dumbledore would allow Snape to teach Defense Against the Dark Arts after all this time, it's still not explained. And it's unfortunate with what happens with Dumbledore at the end. Now we'll never know. Well, you would assume we would never know. But God, I would love to have that discussion between Harry and Dumbledore. By the way, why did you let Snape teach Defense Against the Dark Arts after all this time of denying him? Dumbledore was the one in the first 5 books that denies Snape. So why all of a sudden now is he saying, okay, you know what, it's the 5th time, or 6th time, whatever it is, excuse me, that we're replacing a Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. I know how to break this curse. We're going to employ someone who's already a teacher here who won't leave. We'll make it Snape. Doesn't make any sense. Anyway, Harry's in potions class with Horace Slughorn. And Horace Slughorn offers up Felix Felicius, which is liquid luck. Drink it, get lucky. To whoever can create the best Drought of Living and Death potion. Harry ends up having the Half-Blood Prince book, and thanks to the Half-Blood Prince's knowledge, he's able to win the prize of Felix Felicius. It needs to be mentioned here because this has a major impact towards the end of the book. I also quickly want to make the point of non-verbal spells being discussed and taught in Defense Against the Dark Arts. I really appreciated this, but I don't think they spent enough time on it. I really wish there was a lot more time spent on learning non-verbal spells so we can actually see how this works. Really, not enough time spent on it at all. So the very first time that I finished reading this book, I decided in my mind to not call it Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, but rather to refer to it as Harry Potter and Lord Voldemort, This Is Your Life, because basically we spend a lot of time in this book learning all about Voldemort's life, and back in the day there was a show that used to be on TV here in Australia called This Is Your Life, where a celebrity is given a leather book that says This Is Your Life on it, and the host would read the book during the program and discuss all the things to do with that celebrity's life growing up from when they were little to where they are now. So I was calling it Harry Potter and the Lord Voldemort, This Is Your Life book. And that's what it is. We spend a lot of time learning all these different things that are really important to learn about Lord Voldemort. Let's quickly touch on the Slug Club. Not really a fan of this Slug Club. I get why Horace Slughorn does this. I don't get why J.K. Rowling included it in the book. I mean, I guess to learn more about Slughorn, but I just didn't feel it had any significant importance in the book. Why is it there other than filler? It just didn't make sense to me. Hagrid is upset that Harry, Ron, and Hermione are not doing care of magical creatures anymore, which is completely understandable. He's also upset that Aragog has died, the giant spider that was trying to kill Harry and Ron in book 2, and we're meant to be really upset that this vicious spider who doesn't care who he kills as long as it's not Hagrid is dead. Unlike Slug Club, Katie Bell and that whole necklace fiasco does make sense, because it's pointing all hands in the direction that Malfoy is worse than he's ever been before. I didn't enjoy this. There is a mistake made in the book that I didn't know about till I saw my favourite booktuber Murphy Napier's review of this book, which she did years ago, and she was saying that in one of the chapters, in one of the earlier chapters, it says Katie Bell had returned to Hogwarts from St. Mungo's, and then a chapter or two later it said Katie Bell, who still hadn't returned from St. Mungo's. I did not pick up on this when I read it this time, so hopefully I will next time. But there you go, I do realise the importance of that scene with her and the necklace. Quick chat about Orphaned Voldemort. I love this scene, and I will mention the film now because whether it be book or whether it be film, I love the whole Orphaned Voldemort child scene. You can see how he's going to become the dark wizard that he ends up becoming, and J.K. Rowling wrote this so well, and in the film they cast the actor so very well. This scene, just all in all, is so impressive, and the fact that Dumbledore is able to live this scene, keep it as a memory, put it in the Pensieve, and he and Harry get to watch. Harry gets to watch it for the first time. Ugh, golden. Ron drinks what he thinks is going to be Felix Felicis for the Quidditch thing. Not going to talk too much about that. That was well done by Harry. I really appreciated what he did. I agreed with what he did and how he did it. He wasn't illegal. He did not put it actually in. Well done, but I don't really care too much for the scene, so I don't want to talk about it too much. I do, however, want to talk about Slughorn's modified memory. So obviously Harry and Dumbledore go in the Pensieve, and they are revisiting their memory of Slughorn telling Voldemort about Horcruxes, but he takes that part out. Yep, very much appreciate why that was there and why Harry had to go and retrieve the proper memory. Ron drinks the love potion by mistake. Really did not care for this. Again, this felt like filler. He's obsessed with Romilda Vane. I'm sorry to say this, but don't care. Don't care about love. Don't care about any filler stuff. And there was lots of filler in this book. Harry uses the Bezoar to save Ron, which is something we learnt about from day one in his first potions class with Snape, so I like the link back to that. Harry retrieves the real memory, unmodified, from Slughorn, and it shows that Slughorn indeed told Voldemort about Horcruxes, what they are, and how to go about getting Horcruxes. Indeed, it's pretty much Slughorn's fault. There's no other way to say it. It's his fault. Okay, we are losing time here, and I want to do this book justice, so I will come back for a part 2 and go over some more things in part 2. So look out for that one. It'll be coming up very soon. Until then, letting you guys go. Peace, blessings, and so much love. I'll see you in the next one. Happy reading. Bye, guys. Bye.